Today we're going to talk about some of the gear I carry, but most importantly, I need to talk to you first about the guy that tried to kill me and my wife, as well as some ideas just around the concept of survival and the number one survival rule. So yes, the guy that tried to kill my wife and I. And I'm going to go into some detail here. I'm not going to be using last names, and I'll be providing some old photos from the incident that occurred. And I think it's important to look at this stuff just to get our heads around answering that next question, which is the number one rule of survival, and then going into some of the gear that I carry that's based on the experiences that I've had. So, without going into a ton of detail. In late 2000, during the real estate crisis, my wife and I ran a business liquidating foreclosures for banks. And while we were working for banks, one of the things we had to do was at times serve eviction notices or have people forcibly removed by the sheriff's department. And in an instance where we had someone stay for a very long period of time, over 8 months after the property had been foreclosed on, we were in a situation where we had to go with the deputy to have them removed. Real quick, there's an overhead here. And I just want to show, just to get a reference for the property, this is roughly a 9-acre parcel. This is the front kind of corner of it. And right here at the very front of the property is a gate, which is where we were at when shooting started. And then up here in a tree, and I'll show more footage of that, is where he was shooting from. One of the things that is interesting that I found out later is that through this area, he actually had limbed trees and cleared the field of fire to make sure everything was nice and clean for him to get going. In these photos here, I'm just going to kind of show you a little rough overview of what the tree looked like. He'd wrapped some of it in brown towels to make it a little more of a comfortable shooting position. He gave himself a little step stool and had himself set up with a little tray for ammo and stuff. This is a really well fortified property. I want to also point this out just from a survivalist mindset. He had parapets around the front trees that were roughly 3 feet tall and probably about 4 feet thick that were concrete and granite. Honestly, I think you could have shot them with a rocket and it would have taken multiple hits before they broke away. He also had garage door shutters that came down around every door. And in some of these photos from the day after the police breached, you'll see that they poke through and they yank them out. And the police, when I'll tell you, when you shoot at police, when we talk about risk and survivability, when you shoot at a police officer, in this case a sheriff's deputy, every person on duty with a gun is going to show up. They all want trigger time. We had people from the ATF show up there. We had people from ICE, people from 3 different police departments, as well as what ended up being the regional SWAT team. And the SWAT team took time because he also had security pan, tilt, zoom cameras around the property. Snipers shot all those out while they held the house and while he held it down. But even inside, you can see he had plenty of supplies, fresh fruit, lots of things there that he was planning on holding things down for. And there's going to be a link to the just quick honorable mention article that made it into the newspaper. Since none of us died and he took his own life, didn't really make any mainstream news. We are the 2 real estate agents mentioned in the article, but we did not go and meet with the media because we were representing a client. We wanted to keep our names out of it. But the thing that I want to point out is that when we were down on the property at that gate, the gate had some really gigantic locks on it, bigger than anything we'd seen on it before. And we were deciding that basically we couldn't go through that gate with any normal means that we had available. And as we hesitated and started to turn from that location, that's when the shots started to come in. And when the shots came in, I calmly asked everybody to get to the ground and to be as low as possible so that we wouldn't get hit. That's a joke. I was actually screaming and probably using every curse word that I possibly knew, and was low crawling through cactus needles, You get as low as you possibly can in that situation when those rounds start cracking overhead. I knew right where it was coming from, and I knew right what he was firing. And I got down. I started to crawl through a ditch. I thought people were following me. The locksmith and one of the movers ran up the street immediately. They just took off and got out of the kill zone. That's really the idea. Everybody wants to get out of the kill zone. You get down, get out of the kill zone. So after I started crawling, I looked back and I didn't see the deputy and I didn't see my wife. And so I crawled back towards the road to find out where they were. The deputy was face down with his weapon drawn, and he wasn't answering to any of my calls. He wasn't moving, and I was worried that I was going to have to drag him out. My wife was okay, but I had to tell her, hey, you can't just stay down. We need to get moving. You got to get out of here. She started to move with me. I kept yelling to the deputy. Finally, the deputy popped up and went running down the street as fast as he could. Okay, everyone's alive. We got out of there. So this story has a lot more details, and I don't want to drag it on, because I want to get to the gear that I carry, but I think we have to go into the mindset here first. And this is what brings us to that number one rule of survival. And the number one rule is don't get dead. I don't care how you do it. The main thing is from a moral standpoint, we shouldn't be hurting someone else that is innocent in the process, but otherwise, I don't care. I don't care what you use. I don't care what gear you have. It doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that you win. And so we all have different experiences that are going to fuel the way that we prepare and the way that we pack our kit, right? Saying, hey, I have a specific kit, or this is the stuff I carry, and this is what everyone should carry to keep them alive, really doesn't fit. We're all individuals, right? You may have specific skills that enable you to carry different gear and be of value or be able to do something, right? You may be a mechanic, and if you had a couple extra tools in your kit, you could drive any vehicle you had to drive or make any vehicle operate you needed to operate in order to do something safely. I have a cycling background and have done Ironman races and other things. I'm very comfortable on a bike at relatively 14 miles an hour. I can maintain 120, 125 beats per minute. The bicycle is kind of part of my survival plan. If I had to cross some distance and get to my family, and fuel wasn't an option. So you have other things that are going to fuel your skill set and the way that you develop your kit. And the other thing that I would say is that my kit changes based on the seasons and the risk. Whether it's a day hike that's heavily traveled area, or whether it's a low traveled area, if there's bears in the area, there's a lot of things that are going to have me adjust slightly what I have in the kit. There's some core items that I have that are popularized by other people, and we're going to go into that. But I just want people to have that in their mind, that this isn't an end all. It's just some of the stuff I've carried during the summer. I'm actually getting ready to change my kit because I'm going to be going to survival training with Sean Kelly at Self-Reliance Outfitters. So that my gear is going to change for that specific evolution, and it'll probably continue to change. So I just want to have you keep that in mind as we go into some of these gear items that we're going to discuss. So now we'll get into the gear. What I have here is pretty much everything I've carried with me in videos you've seen to date. So both the Greenwood Lake fishing videos, as well as some of my hikes around Rainier or the falls. This is what I had in my pack. One of my favorite items out of all this is going to be the water carrying stuff. And this is really the bulk of my kit, and some of these other items start to become redundancy, but I'm going to show this last so that I can open it up and go into everything. First item, of course, is a pack. You really just have to go with something that you like. I don't particularly like this one. I've used it for a while now. Got it on Amazon. One of my favorite packs that I've owned over the years was an Alice pack that I had in the Marine Corps. So the next item that we're going to go into, I have a lot of the basics, the cutting, everything in here. I'm just going to go into some of the other items that I've carried. I talk about topographical maps in the past. So you can go to MyTopo, or you can use National Geographic. MyTopo is a little bit more difficult to use as far as going to their site and getting maps for your area, but they're pretty good maps. The National Geographic stuff can be a little bit limited, but I have that with me. And then inside that kit, right below it, I carry stuff to write with, as well as I carry a compass that's ready to go. And then within that, I also have a protractor for navigation that I keep in here as well. So that's all inside of that kit. I don't typically have to go to the land navigation route for the areas that I go into. The trails, everything else are on the maps, and they work pretty good. So we'll get that packed and out of the way for now. Keeping some kind of additional light. So this is just one that my friend Nancy bought for me for Christmas a long time ago, and I've gotten a ton of great use out of it. This one's a Petzl. It's been a pretty good piece of gear. And then just gloves and a beanie. Sometimes it's gotten colder. I think in the Greenwood Lake video, you guys saw me throw this one on, even these silly blue gloves, but it works. It's good stuff for the summer, a little thin for winter. Tape, just because having some Gorilla Tape's always handy for anything. I actually have some tears in this old poncho that I've fixed with it, and they've been holding up, so I just use that. And then I have athletic tape just for feet, blisters, anything else that might come up. And then just a little first aid kit with things that could be important, you know, Band-Aids, antiseptic wipes, things like that, just in case. Sunscreen and bug juice, especially if you got a bald head like me. It's important to have that stuff out. I have this cloth, so it's fluorescent, which is cool. Not really big enough to be any kind of what I would think a good signaling cloth, but the other thing I use it for is just to wrap over the mouth of a bottle, and then you can fill water in and have it be somewhat filtered, and then you can just boil the water in the bottle, and then you got pretty good drinking water. So that's another one that I like to have. Toilet paper, because, well, yep, it happens. And then I have a little saw. So this isn't in the tight kit, but this is something that always goes with me just in case. One of the reasons I carry this is I think about a situation where I would need to make like a stretcher out of my poncho to help carry somebody else or drag somebody else out. Is I can use this to help make it rigid with some sticks from the path and then carry that person with me. But it's also just handy if you ever have to. A lot of the places that I go in this area, Rainier and around Washington, have pretty strict guidelines around what you can cut down. So I'm not out there just doing it for the heck of it, but if there were an emergency situation, then I definitely would. So for water, there's a few different ways. So I have a life straw, like my wife's kit has a life straw in it for drinking water. If I have time, I always prefer to boil it, to filter it with that cloth and then boil it, just because to me, I'm guaranteeing it's clean. I don't know how well the filter will hold up. I know they go a long time, but I, for some reason, just have issues there. And this is just an MSR little camp stove. Works really good. I haven't had any problems with it. And then from there, just talking about food, one of the other items that's usually in my pack is some kind of lunch. And it's typically, I like to just do honey, peanut butter and honey. I like to keep it really like nutrient dense. As a backup, I got a dehydrated beef stew. And the other one that I carry is a package of coconut oil. I mean, this is a big package. It's like 24 servings, 120 calories. So when we talk about nutrient dense, I mean, this is a ton of fat calories that you can have with you at any time. So I like to have that as kind of a backup. And then I have a Garmin GPS, and I'll be honest, I love Garmin. I use Garmin stuff for triathlon, and I think it's been super reliable. I don't find this to be the most useful piece of gear. And it's because the screen is really small, it's hard to navigate and cumbersome, and it's easier for me to look at a map and know where I'm at and what's going on. This is great if I want to chart the course and then look at it later, but it really doesn't provide a lot of functionality on the trail. So just a heads up on that. And then what I think, a lot of this stuff comes from Dave Canterbury, and I know people have already heard of him, and Sean's talked about him in the past. That the 5 C's or 10 C's, like items that you should carry, are in this Bushcraft 101 book, as well as just a lot of other stuff around just kind of the theory and concepts around survival and what you should have in your kit. It's a great book to have. So that's almost always with me as well. And then I want to go into this other, my little kind of go kit piece. This will go into my bag and I'll carry it. But also like on the, the boat, when you saw me in the boat fishing, I pulled this and threw it in the boat. So this is ready to go. Sometimes I'll just throw it in my truck when I'm heading somewhere. I mean, this is kind of an easy item that's ready to go, and I'll unpack this real quick for everybody. This is really kind of the meat of what I like to carry. And so one of the first items in here is just a good solid fixed blade knife that I know that I can even baton. If I have to beat something up, I keep it sharp. Along with that, having, that knife is I always keep I have another one that's always just ready to go. And I like this one. It's a little bit of a different shape with that curved shape. And the ring, it's actually meant to be carried and used a different way than the way I use it on a campsite. But I just like having that extra little grip there because I worry about potential of your hand sliding forward or getting cut with the blade. And so for me, it's just an extra little blade that I can do detailed work with and still make sure that I don't slip. So it's something that I just always have. And then I have a little pocket knife too sometimes that I carry. So it just kind of depends. Back onto this kit here. So we have for water carrying, I got an older clean canteen as well as a canteen cup in there. So we've got something that we can I can take the top off of this and I can boil water in it. And the other cool thing that I keep in here just on a string is just this piece of wood. So I can just take it and pick it up. So after I boil it, I can just pick it up and go set it in the river, the lake, whatever, and help it cool down. You just don't want to let it come over over and fill it up. So it's a handy little trick that Sean taught me. Inside of this kit, I keep the little survival emergency blanket. We bought a whole bunch of these at one time. I think we've got them just kind of in our house kind of little kit for stuff. And then we want to be able to start a fire. So of course I got a regular lighter with some Gorilla Tape wrapped around it. I've got lots of cordage so that I can set up a shelter if I have to with this poncho. And everybody knows 550 cord. And then I have another fire starting little striker. I like this one because it's got this cool, so it's like you can pop it open and you can strike it. But it's also got this little watertight spot inside. And what I have in here is I just keep a little bag that's got, it's got dryer lint that has like Vaseline on it. So when I start a fire, it'll just go set in and it can burn for a while when I'm getting my kindling going. That's it for the stuff that I carry with me to have available in this little pack. But what I'll even show you is just right nearby. This is, so my wife carries with her to work every day, just what's another real similar kit. So we've got our knife right on the side, and then we've got cloth inside of there. We've got fire starting gear inside of there. She's got the canteen cup inside of there. Everything that she would need to help get her back home. So we've got a few of them. And then of course the everything's sitting on the Marine Corps poncho. It's got some tears in it. I probably need to upgrade. I've looked around. I really need to get some ideas from other people on everything I see. They say they're not as durable as the ones that were provided for service members. And this is like one of the actual ones that we used. So I'm looking for something that could replace it that would be just as strong. So if anybody's actually ordered or bought anything recently, I would love to get their tips on one they may have found that is same size and as durable. And then I wanted to go into just a couple of items that were mentioned by other people when they viewed the Getting Out video, where we talked about just our vehicle and some of the other safety, because there were some good comments we had that I really thought were useful. A handful of them in there actually that were really good. So Dana Lim, one of the things that was mentioned was FRS, or Family Radio Service, channel 16. And what they pointed out was a lot of times rangers will be listening to that channel. It's something I've actually had in the past and don't have now. And I thought, for a communication plan, that's a really good backup plan, or even something to have to stay in communication with people in your party. So that FRS is a good thing to look into. The general commented on headlamp, which I had in this kit. Talked about some other kind of pocket light, or even a LED strobe for safety that you could just clip onto something. A strobe is pretty good in the middle of the night if you're trying to get found. And then talked about a whistle, and even like that life straw, which I know Sean, Corporal's Corner, other people have talked about in the past, and we have them in other kits that we've got. It's not something I always carry. And then Charles talked about, he's a former first responder, and one of the things he said about that video is the concept of helping people find you, right? And I want to even say that about gear is, if people know what you have for gear, they know even what to look for, right? If they know what your shelter is going to be made of, they even know what they're looking for as far as a shelter that's out there. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. And then Totally Gomer talked about having like a standalone GPS, and like that Garmin that I have, again, I love Garmin, but I don't think that's a great piece of gear. There are some pretty cool locator beacons that you can use they're expensive when you flip the switch and need somebody to save you, but they are a great piece of gear to have. In one of those situations, I don't have one. And if I were going to be going out somewhere really crazy, it would probably be something that I would look into. So I just wanted to touch on that stuff that those folks pointed out, so that everybody could kind of hear about that. But otherwise, that is it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I know you have lots of choices when it comes to what you watch, what you comment on, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch and share your thoughts with me. And this next week, I'm going to be changing up the gear that I have and getting packed, because I'm going to be going out to get some training with my buddy Sean. I know we'll be limited there because they don't like to video the course, but I'll be sure to share probably what I take with me and my thoughts and some other stuff when I get back from that. So thank you very much, folks. Have a good one. Get outside. It's good for your inside.